Welcome to another edition of the Pro Wrestling Podcast, brought to you by BackSportsPage.com. With me, as always, is my tag team partner. That's Emerito Rivera. My name is Randy Zellea. Em, how are we today? And on this beautiful, this drops on a Monday. So this is a Monday morning. How are you?
Monday mornings normally suck, except for this. This is the only good thing about Monday mornings. I'm not a morning guy. You know this. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not a morning person.
Well, you and I always used to joke around about Monday mornings and like you're like a vampire. All of a sudden you see the sun come right up and you start burning in the sun.
Exactly. Like I have the curtains pulled. I'm like cranky. I got my cup of coffee. Like the first thing you tell me is good morning. I'm like, good morning. Like, dude, I could do without mornings. I really can.
Well, if you are a nostalgic wrestling fan, this is a good Monday morning because our guest today is the one and only podcast hosting guru, Conrad Thompson. And when we had Conrad on with us, I got to tell you, man, I felt like I learned not only a lot about his fandom for the nostalgia wrestling world, but a lot about the business world as well.
Exactly. Like I'm a businessman, obviously, with Level 1 Games, but I'm sitting there taking notes. I'm like, so business is your secret, huh? Interesting. Yeah. And he was a really cool dude, man. Like I said, a very, very relaxed, chill guy.
And one of the things I want everyone to take away from the interview is how he's able to balance his time out and his relationship with the guys, and just on how he was able to put all of this together. And of course, obviously, for those who don't know, he is related in his own way to Ric Flair. He is the son-in-law of the one and only Nature Boy. Got to do the strut. Every single time you say Ric Flair, you got to do the strut.
You got to do the woo too, man. You can't forget
that. You can't forget. Yeah, you got woo, little woo nation right there. Woo. And so, so we learned a lot from Conrad. And before we get to the show, we want to thank our good friends over at Level 1 Games that M knows well about. Level 1 Games in Pompton Plains, New Jersey. If you are a card game, board game, video game guy, Level 1 Games is the place where you want to be because they take your game to the next level by reliving your past. So that's over at level1games.com. But listen, enough about us rambling on about Conrad Thompson and video games. Not that we shouldn't be talking about video games because that's that man's business. But right now, let's take it over to our good friend, Conrad Thompson. All right now joining us is Conrad Thompson, the king of, I guess we should start calling you the king of wrestling podcast because you pretty much rewrote the book on how all this is done, right? Like, you know,
I don't know about that.
No, but so I guess I want to start this off, Conrad, with how did you really? The first podcast you did with wrestling was with Ric Flair, the Woo podcast. How did that come about? Because a lot of people think that you just started with Bruce, but a lot of people sort of forgotten about the Ric Flair podcast.
Yeah, we did too. We did one for CBS's Play.it platform. That was Woo Nation. He got an offer through his agent to do a podcast, and I just so happened to be hanging out with him the day that the offer came in, and we talked through what a podcast was and how you would get a podcast and all that. And then eventually he asked if I would sit in and ask him fan questions for the first episode. And I said, sure. So I became an accidental podcaster. Fast forward, now I have 5 wrestling podcasts. Who would have thought?
And does that mean
right place, right time, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely. Everything in life is timing. And maybe that's one of the better examples of my life.
And how did the introduction with Bruce come along?
Bruce was a guest on the Ric Flair show, as was Tony Schiavone, and as was Eric Bischoff, and as was Jim Ross. So over time, I got to meet all these guys just from them being guests on Ric's show. And when Ric wasn't having as much fun podcasting anymore, I saw an opportunity to sort of shake things up with Bruce, and we sort of reinvented a new format, and we were off to the races.
Did you feel, obviously we're going to fast forward with this question here, with Bruce going back to WWE, did you feel that there might be any type of handcuffs because he's back there now?
Well, I mean, I think it goes without saying we're not going to talk about current stuff, but, realistically, he was never burying Vince on any of these shows, because this was all his idea too. He's in the room when these decisions are made, so he's not going to get on a platform and just disparage his own idea. So, yeah, I think, the biggest thing for me, I knew going in was going to be a time constraint. Will he have time to do this? There's no such thing as part-time or full-time with WWE. It's all the time. And that's very much been his existence. It's all the time.
Did you feel like you had to make any changes to the format? Because I know you did away with the polls. I know that was the one thing that.
Oh, that's a time thing. That we were done with the polls long before he went back. I can't do 5 shows a week and then let fans decide on Monday and me do 40 pages worth of notes and then record the show. There's not enough time. So that was a function of time. Bruce would be fine with us doing polls. I just don't have time to do the polls like I used to. We still do them every now and again, but I've got to have a real plan. Because at this point I'm doing 5 shows a week, 52 weeks a year, plus a bonus episode every month for ad-free shows. So it's a lot. You're talking about over 300 shows. I can't do that and just let the fans arbitrarily decide every week. I love the idea, but when you try to scale it, it becomes a scheduling nightmare.
Yeah, that sounds like a scheduling nightmare. I mean, it's a lot of work for us to put this show together.
Right.
And this is one time a week, so I can't imagine doing this 5 times and then take all those notes. I think I'd just slip my wrist at that point.
It's a lot, but we've got a really good team. It's not just me and my co-host now. We've got a full team of people who help us with this. It's become a real business, and we're thankful to have the opportunity and glad that people are digging what we're doing and tuning in.
Well, you said to the business side. Can you talk about that part of it, getting it to be a business where it is a financial win for everybody?
Yeah. I mean, the key is first, you've got to have the great content that people want to hear, because if you've got the best business model, but you don't have an audience, what is there to do? So you've got to have an audience first. And once you've got that, you've got to have the right sort of what I would call back end. And Westwood One has been a fantastic partner for us. They have a great sales division, and we still sell ads direct over at advertisewithconrad.com. So, you come up with all these different revenue streams. You got to have merch, you got to have live shows, you got to have a pay site, you got to have, your general ad sales, you got to have direct ad sales. So when you look through all of this and then you sprinkle in YouTube monetization too, you can get paid 5 or 6 or maybe 7 different ways through podcasting. And, I do business for a living. I'm at my office right now. It's a different setup than what everybody sees when I'm podcasting my shows. So my brain definitely works in the business world as far as, okay, this is a good idea and it's fun, but how do we make money with it? And by the way, that's created a lot of jobs. We don't talk about that enough, but we've got, at least 12 full-time people working on this enterprise that we've built here. And those are people who have, incomes now to support their families. So I can't tell you how many people, have a better life because of this podcast financially, or these podcasts rather.
Yeah, because it's a full-time job, 5 shows a week. It's
Absolutely
amazing. So you said you have 12 people. Can you
That's
name
right.
a couple of, what did they do?
So Stan helps us with research. So does Derek and Chris. We've got 3 folks who help us with research. We've got Steve, who runs our YouTube, Ryan, who works our merch, Evan, who handles all things ad-free shows. Of course, everybody knows Dave Silva, who does all of our graphics. Matt Kuhn does all of our audio engineering stuff. And then Chris McDonald does all of our video. So on and on and on. We've also created, paying gigs for all the extra bonus content over at ad-free shows. So guys like Gerald Briscoe and Mike Chioda, and we've had special guests like Francine, and of course Medusa's on there, and Rebel. And as we continue to expand the footprint, there's a real payroll here now. And I'm fine with that, by the way. I'm trying to give a unique approach and a unique look and create a different experience and make it sort of all encompassing. And the latest acquisition is Bruce Mitchell, who's been with the Torch for decades. And we're going to do like an old school hotline style update every single day. So just like we used to call 1-900-909-9900. Well, now you're going to get the old school hotline feel. And everything we talk about on my shows is all nostalgia. So this will be the first time we're talking about some current stuff. But that could be challenging since I've got people working in every company. Politically, nobody wants to, sort of spread trade secrets. However, there is a thirst for that. So if you can't beat them, join them, I suppose. And Bruce Mitchell will be answering that age-old Jim Barnett question, what's the dirt?
Well, it's funny, too. You just mentioned you have people working in every company, and you hosted the first real press conference of the launch of AEW. People were trying to put 2 and 2 together to think that you would be part of the company. What was it like, and how did you get involved with doing that launch press conference with AEW? And obviously, you're not part of the company, so what's your relationship with them?
I'm just friends with Tony Khan. I was friends with Tony Khan years before AEW was a thing. And, he knew what he was doing. He knew that he was going to land Jim Ross eventually, and he did. So I was essentially the placeholder. But once Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross come along, who the hell's Conrad Thompson? But when he needed me, I was there.
Right place, right time yet again.
Yeah, the Forrest Gump of wrestling. I had no business being there.
I have to also ask, with adfreeshows.com, you seem to create all these different little ventures for yourself. And just like you, I'm pretty sure it was you who probably talked to Bruce and Eric about when the shirt sells from ProWrestlingTees.com, they probably give them a call to help, keep the fan base. When you come up with these different ideas, what are some of the reactions to your co-hosts with it? Like, is it a hard sell or is it?
No, it's not. And in time, it's gotten easier. They understand that usually if I have an idea, it's going to be fruitful for everyone involved. I've always had this attitude in business. If you want me to do it, tie some money to it. So usually the guys know if I'm calling and saying, hey, would you mind, or would you consider whatever idea I'm going to pitch them will mean a little, as JR likes to say, extra cheese on their Whopper. So they're usually pretty agreeable.
If you had to, what has been the most enjoyable episodes that you've done of any of the shows? If you had to pick a couple shows, which have been the best ones for you?
Well, enjoyable for me and best for the audience are different things.
Okay.
I enjoy busting balls and arguing with the guys. That's fun. That's just my personality. But I think this past week, the episode we dropped with Bruce on Pat Patterson's probably top 5 best things we've ever done. You could just tell how engaged and how emotional and how real it was to Bruce. And, that's not something we can script or write down or put on a sheet of paper. It's either there or it's not. And the love for Pat Patterson just came through the speakers, man. And those last 15 minutes I would put up against, the whole show. It's a roller coaster. You're going to laugh and you're going to cry. And when a wrestling podcast can make you do that, you've done something right. So Pat Patterson is going to be near the top of the list right now.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people enjoy, because I've seen a lot of the clips floating around when you get on these guys. Think on their ideas of how this should have gone. I think the Hulk Hogan one, when he won Yokozuna and he was supposed to go to Europe, but he didn't go to Europe, and you just go off on them. I think that's one of the most entertaining things. And people wonder, it's like, how can you get away with that? Can you tell us the mutual respect that you guys have, that you can go that extra mile that maybe a lot of other people can't?
Well, here's the thing too. You're talking about a Bruce Pritchard episode, and Bruce and I had spent at that point years together. And I don't just mean like we would every now and again get together. I mean, at least 10 days a month we were with each other, morning, noon, and night. Like, he stayed at my house because he would come in town and we would work on marketing ideas. So we got to be very, very familiar with each other and became really, really great friends. And he also understood that at the end of the day, we're trying to do a show. It's supposed to be entertaining. And if every time, I always make the analogy here in Alabama, of course, all anybody talks about on sports talk radio is Alabama football. Well, if the caller says, or one of the hosts were to say, well, nobody's going to beat Alabama. Look how they just, thumped LSU. No one can compete with them. They're the best team that we've ever seen. I mean, no one can slow them down. If the co-host just said, I agree, we'll be back after these words. Like, that's terrible. That's not entertaining. You've got to have, I don't know. Florida's got something that nobody else has had. Saban's always struggled in his secondary. And what will they do against a spread offense? And nobody's ready he hasn't seen an offense like Florida has this year in the SEC championship. Okay, now we've got a debate. We've got some point and counterpoint. And that's the whole concept behind these shows is, what's sort of the company line and what did Meltzer say? This is what we've always believed as quote unquote smart marks. Here's the company side. Let's tell both and let our listeners decide for themselves. So I know he's going to dig his heels in and argue. So I am too. And it makes it entertaining. And in the end, when people are talking about it and tweeting about it, guess what? That builds the show. That's better for everybody. But if we just, yes, sir, I agree. Yes, sir, I agree. Eventually people are like, okay, this isn't entertaining. This is not fun.
Exactly. That makes total sense.
How close was 83 weeks to ending after the Starrcade 97 episode? I have to ask that question because that was, I think, the most intense I've ever heard both you and Eric.
Not at all. But if you think that's good, you wait. I got another one coming that's already in the can. I forget if it's Starrcade 99 or Starrcade 2000, but Eric's going to be on the road for December. So we're trying to get ahead. And boy, we are after each other. It's kind of fun. So I love Starcade 97. I loved the Slamboree 98, which was the, I think we touched on the DX Invasion episode there. We've had some really big knockdown dragouts with Eric, but, Eric and I both know, love, and trust each other. And we know that, we're trying to be entertaining, but we can also agree to disagree. We can have different opinions. Just to have someone in your life or be your friend doesn't mean that you have to vote for the same guy or watch the same shows or listen to the same music. So yeah, we were in full blown FU mode, and that's entertaining radio.
And it's funny too. You say that. I've talked with Eric before. He and I texted back and forth, and one of the things that he and I both love talking about is TV production and the behind the scenes aspect of making television. That stuff always fascinates me. How are you able to lock up some of these guys like Bruce and Eric and Aaron? We barely talked about Aaron, but the stuff that you do with Aaron is gold too, because he's so old school, being able to go back into the 80s. And like you talk about nostalgia. How are you able to lock in these guys?
How did I get them to agree to do the show?
Yeah.
I had a business plan. Once everyone saw the success of something to wrestle, it was kind of easy. We like to joke, everything's college football down here. So in Alabama, Auburn has to recruit, but Alabama gets to screen. So like if Auburn wants a guy, they got to go work on him. At Alabama, we just wait and they show up and say, I'd like to play here, because they understand if you come play here, you're going to be a millionaire. Well, I'm not saying that I'm going to make you a millionaire from podcasting, but I am saying you'll make more money doing a podcast with me than you will anyone else. And that's not me saying that. That's just the reality. And I've proven it over and over and over. So eventually it gets to a point to where, and here's a little scoop for you. I'm about to announce another podcast, and I didn't pitch him, and I didn't pitch Eric. And I mean, there's so many of these shows that I'm doing that I didn't have to go sell it. They came to me because they understood, hey, I enjoy the podcast medium. I'd like to, do my thing there and experiment in the space. Who do I want to do it with? And thankfully, knock on wood, I've got a proven track record of creating revenue. And that's an easy sell. So it's really easier than you think, but it starts with A, a good idea, B, proof of concept, and most importantly, C, you got to have a real good business plan.
So basically just business in general.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you got to appreciate the idea of the wrestling podcast platform. Look how many wrestlers have had a podcast and then quit. Why did they quit? Because they didn't have an extra hour a week, or because it wasn't making any money? Now, that's not what anybody's going to talk about, but I'm just saying eventually, and people are willing to give something a try and try new things and put themselves out there. But eventually, if you keep working at this thing and you're putting a bunch of time, effort, and energy in it, and you're seeing very little to no reward, you're going to say, I don't want to do this anymore. So it's back to my other thing. If you want me to do it, tie some money to it. What keeps these guys doing podcasts with me is around the 27th, they get a big check with a comma in it, and they'll be back next week.
And one thing, since we're talking about business, you're a mortgage broker, right?
Mortgage banker, but everyone says broker, but I'm fine with whatever. I do mortgages. Yes, sir.
How difficult is it to balance what you do in your daytime job with all the podcasts? Because we have already discussed how you have 5 shows. Now you're going to have 6 with this new one, and your day job. Like, is it, I know it's demanding, but how do you cope with it all?
Well, I have a support staff, so as far as social media, I've got somebody helping with that named Dave Hancock. For graphics, I got Dave Silva. For audio editing, I got Matt Kuhn. You've heard about the research. So all it requires of me is really just be prepared, meaning be familiar with the material, and, click record and go. So as we're talking now, it's the 7th of the month. I'm done until next month for 3 of those shows. Really? So
wow,
it's easy for me to just, schedule my time and work and get ahead. And usually what I'll do is try to do something first thing in the morning or as soon as I get off work, and then I'll load up Saturday and Sunday. So it does require you're working 7 days a week. But here's the thing. I love what I do. So I'm not working a day in my life. I enjoy coming to this office and doing mortgages. I enjoy, talking about old wrestling. And I found a way to dovetail both of those. You would think in theory, what in the hell do those things have in common? Well, I've been advertising my mortgage company for more than 10 years, anywhere I could get an audience, radio, TV, internet, whatever. But now instead of asking someone to sort of lend me their credibility and me appear on their radio show, I just promoted on my own show, and it's worked out a lot better. The sales cycle for any buying process is they're going to do business with someone they know, like, and trust. Well, I've been really fortunate that a lot of people who listen to me know, like, and trust me, so they'll give me their mortgage business. So it's really been a lot easier than you may imagine when you have a great support staff with you and you're not trying to do it all yourself. The key is delegation.
And with that being said, too, how much with your mortgage business have you seen an increase from the show?
Oh, phenomenal! We've got over 100 branches, but not all the branches are dealing with mortgage customers from the podcast. These the branch I'm sitting in right now that you see in the background, it's almost exclusively from ads from the mortgage. I mean, from the wrestling podcast. So I don't know, 30, 40, 50 million in loans a month, every month from the wrestling podcast. That's loan volume, not revenue, not dollars through the gate. But yeah, it's substantial. I mean, a ton of folks listen, and a ton of folks are looking to buy or take advantage of these rates and refinance and, consolidate some debt or whatever. And we've been fortunate to be in the right place at the right time again.
That's today's theme, by the way.
It is. Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. Earlier in your run with Bruce, you had more shows that were like that 2 hour, like the Bret Hart one for 96 and 97. You had longer shows. Obviously, you've been able to, because Bruce's time restraints, been able to cut down on those. Did you find those to be a little bit more complicated to do because of the amount of work you tried to carry? I know that most recently was the Kevin Nash episode. You guys said you ended up having to split that into two because there was so much. How do you make that judgment of how long is too much for a show?
I don't. I just want to talk about it until the topic is done. So I never go into a show saying, hey, this needs to be 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. I want to cover the topic as thoroughly as we can. Now, that said, we did have a bit of a situation with Bruce where his change of circumstance is real. He doesn't have 5 hours to just sit down and talk about old wrestling anymore. Every minute of his day is scheduled right now with WWE. So that one was chopped up because there was no way. I could have kept talking, but he's gone. So it would just been me asking questions and no answer for an entire year. So I didn't want to do that. So instead we trimmed it. And I know going in on his shows, how much time do we have? And there's been a lot of times where we're getting going and the conversation is good, but I realize, hey, I'm up against it time wise, or his schedule will change and he'll text me in real time. And now I've got to take that 2.5 hour window and get it done in an hour 45. So 45 minutes of my show will just disappear right in the middle. Just like in real wrestling, where right before you go through the curtain, they say, hey, we got to cut 9 minutes out. What? And we got to try to figure it out. So that's the unfortunate reality of Bruce being back. But the best part of him being back is he's making more money than ever and having more fun than ever. And I'm not going to fault my friend for doing well by him and his family. And we'll be here when he gets fired the next time.
I have to ask too, because you are a wrestling fan, that's why you do this. What do you think, not only the WWE, but what do you think about the current product and the current landscape of the wrestling business right now?
I think it's fun. I think it's a great time to be a fan. We've got so much access, to not just the wrestlers themselves through social media, but once upon a time, dude, it was a big deal to get an old VHS compilation in the mail. And you would hope it wouldn't be busted, and you would hope it would be a good quality and it would be first gen or whatever. And now, dude, you've got every wrestling match ever in your pocket. That's the coolest thing ever. So I'm really thankful for the network and for the internet and for our access to great matches and great old content and new stuff. And yeah, I still watch every week. I don't watch every minute of Raw. I don't watch every minute of SmackDown, but there's something in every show that still appeals to me. So I DVR them all, fast forward, and find the stuff I like and watch it. The stuff that's not for me, I just skip it. But I do that in my real life too. Life's too short to try to suffer through something you don't enjoy. The only show I know I'm watching live every week is when AEW's on live. And people are going to say that's because I'm a homer. No, it's because 2 of my best friends are on commentary. And it's fun sometimes to text them and bust their balls. And sometimes, most of the time, I get a response. And that tickles me because I'm a sophomore at heart.
I, I gotta say it because I saw you tweet it and I tweeted it right after you saying typical Tony bomb or something like that. I think Tony or Tony pipe bomb as soon as he said bullshit at the end of
It's tremendous.
because the famous line after Bash at the Beach, Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell. That's
It's the new thing, and to be able to text him in real time and bust his balls about it was great. So I watch it live when they're live, but when the shows are taped, I'll DVR AEW too, and I'll watch it when I get a chance. And I watch all that stuff, and I don't get Ring of Honor anymore, but I used to, and I DVR'd that all the time, and I still keep up with Impact. That's DVR'd every week, so I try to watch everything I can, but I might be a week or two behind and then catch up.
Yeah, because there's just so much content. I try to catch up. I watch New Japan. I watch AEW. I watch a little bit of WWE. I'm trying to get back into Impact. There's MLW. There's NWA. Well, NWA not right now, but there's just so much. And thankfully, we have the technology to really go back and watch it. Not like it used to be, man. Definitely not. So I wanted to sit here and get your opinion on something, but I think I'm running out of time here.
No, go ahead. Shoot.
Oh man, your show, the new one. Can you tell us anything about it? The name of it?
Nope. No.
No, it's still secret.
No hints.
He tried.
No hints.
He really did try.
I tried.
Connor, I definitely have to throw this out to you because of I'm not gonna lie. There's a little piece of me that is just amazed on how you do this with your shows, especially with Eric, because Eric has, especially with my conversations with him, he doesn't have any hostility about the way things ended with WWE as far as his run as GM and how he's very good with being an on-air personality. But for you to go back and talk with him about some of the things that really went wrong with WCW, and I'm going to go back to that Bash of the Beach episode, 2000, where the Hogan's thing with Vince Russo and everything. And there was one comment, and it sticks with me, and I always joke with Em about this. There was a comment where you said he made a comment about Dave Meltzer, and you can tell that everybody you have on your shows hates Dave Meltzer. But I can see you shaking your head already. I think you know where I'm going with this. But Eric says he's never run a wrestling show, and apparently he never did this. And he said they lost something like $80 million for the year, and you criticized Eric for not being able to run the wrestling company. Do you ever get any blacks back from Eric with that? I know it's the most long-winded question ever, and I apologize for that. But stuff like that.
No, yeah, we definitely talk about it. But here's the thing about accounting and Turner at the time. Nobody knew what the hell was what. You got to appreciate from a wrestling company standpoint, it wasn't ran the same way every other wrestling company was. So if they had a pay-per-view, WCW didn't get credit and went to Turner Home Entertainment. And WCW wasn't paid any sort of television rights fee like WWE was. So if you take out all of their pay-per-view revenue and you put it in another column, and you take out all of their home video release stuff and you put it in another column, and you also don't give them anything for their TV show, what are we talking about? Like, we get all of the debt to go create the show, so we're paying for satellite time and trucks and production and all that, but we're not actually being paid the revenue for it. We're going to do an ad participation deal. That's just, it's not the same thing. So whenever people say, oh, they lost this amount of money, did they really? That's the thing. Nobody really knows. And I'm sure a lot of people say, well, the audited financial, but I'm just telling you, buddy, I deal with that stuff every day. And it's easy for me to move something to here or there. Ask Enron. Lots of folks did this. And that's just the way a big corporation like that will do. Like, they'll make a major purchase and then they'll amortize it and they'll write down some of it and blah, blah, blah. So there's lots of creative accounting. Here's the thing I know. I never watched The Sopranos and wondered, boy, are they operating this show at a loss? I wonder what James Gandolfini's making per episode. That never bothered me. I never wondered what the rating was. I never wondered what the ad buy was. I never wondered what the budget was. All I knew was I love The Sopranos and I can't wait for Sunday night. And at heart, I love Nitro and I couldn't wait till Monday night. It didn't matter to me, all the business stuff. That's not for me. Either it's entertaining or it's not. But because we have all this access as fans to behind the scenes, we all become like these pseudo experts on ratings and business and finance. Can we not just be a freaking fan and like it? So I understand why guys get annoyed with all that, especially when there's a lot of misinformation. And as we say all the time, he said, she said.
Yeah. Well, Conrad, I really want to thank you for coming on with us today. Really appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, and something to wrestle. 83 weeks, the RN show. What happened when with Tony Schiavone, Grilling JR. They're all out there, and I got to tell you, definitely worth the listen. We don't know how you do it with managing the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk wrestling. Sorry, it was a little hard to pin me down, but I'm busy. My apologies.
Yeah, listen.
As you listed those shows, I need a nap just listening to it. I kind of forget that I'm doing all of this because I'm having fun doing it. But I had fun catching up with you guys today. Let's do this again sometime soon.
Definitely. Thanks again. All right, so that was Conrad Thompson here with Emerito Rivera and myself, Randy Zellea. And Em, a lot to digest in that interview. One of the things I found very interesting about our conversation with him was the fact that he has a staff of 12 people working on all of his shows. So he's not doing as much research as we originally thought he was. I thought it was like three people operation, and finding out what it was pretty amazing to me.
Yeah, I sat there and I thought, man, he's got a full-time gig, mortgage broker, and then he's sitting there looking at all this stuff from the 80s and 90s. I'm like, God damn, how does he find the time? But we come to realize that he has a staff, so maybe that's something we need to look at, like, because I can't find all that time to research.
I'm like sitting there, he's got a whole crack stuff. I'm like sitting there, you know me well enough to know, like, I think it's a funny joke to tell about just how busy our schedules are. We'll save that for another episode. But overall, I thought it was a great experience to talk with Conrad. I love the shows. And one of the other things I also felt very interested in was once Bruce went back to WWE on how the scheduling changed for that particular show. I'm sure when Eric was back at WWE, the scheduling probably was something similar. But Eric was not back for that long. It's amazing, though, because of his little family of podcasts. You have Tony Schiavone, which, Tony Schiavone is like Bob Saget in my eyes. You think he's this nice, clean-cut guy, and he's got the potty mouth of the century.
That's great.
All right, so real quick, let's pay some bills and then get out of here. A quick thanks to our producer, Andrew Fume. You can check him out at am24808 on Instagram, or email him at andrewfume94@gmail.com. He's the one who makes us sound and look as good as we are.
Because we suck, honestly.
Seriously,
I know I suck, so okay. He does an amazing job with me.
Yeah, he does. He makes me look great. I'm 750 pounds. I don't know if you know that or not. No, so I'm just kidding. But a special thank you for Andrew for putting the show together the way he does, and special thanks for that. Special thanks for our sponsor, Level 1 Games in Pompton Plains, New Jersey. Take your game to the next level and relive your past. Go to level1games.com. And of course, you can find all of our episodes at backsportspage.com, or you can go to your normal podcast host stations, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, just to name a few. We are everywhere. Check it out. And by the way, follow us on social media. We're on Twitter. We are on Facebook. Send us a like our YouTube channel. Like I said, we're everywhere.
Make sure you share any of your wrestling friends. They might enjoy this, so share along.
Share along. For Emerito Rivera, I'm Randy Zellea. We'll see you next week on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast.